Hello, this is the voice of Stuart Pearce, and welcome to my series of deep dialogues. These are vital conversations I engage in with global soul stewards from all over the planet, providing us with vital understandings about how we can create a new hierarchy of values to help us evolve into a brave new world. I hope you enjoy, and thanks for listening.
And welcome to our honored guest, and welcome to all of you wonderful people tuning in. In this moment, I see Betty and Wendy and Ellen and Stacy. And so I know one or two of you are firm favorites of this wonderful gentleman sitting here. And so what I'd love to do is just to share with you formally his bio, and then Peter and I are going to really move into, I know, a very in-depth process. So Peter, this wonderful gentleman we have sitting in front of us, whose name is Peter PANAGORE. Peter is an internationally acclaimed author and spiritual counselor, best known for his Audible International Best-Seller, Heaven is Beautiful, How Dying Taught Me That Death is Just the Beginning. This extraordinary book details Peter's two near-death experiences that profoundly altered his life. Now, receiving a BA in English literature from the University of Massachusetts in 1982, Peter shifted his focus from architecture to theology and completed his master's degree at Yale University, concentrating on the essence of Western mysticism. Peter has also served in progressive New England churches for over 2 decades, as well as enjoying 15 years as a television writer, authoring stories of hope and inspiration for his daily NBC-TV morning news broadcast. This has reached an audience of over 30 million viewers and has championed Peter's second book, 2 Minutes for God. I could go on and on and on, but I'd rather you hear his voice. So, Peter, welcome.
Thank you, Stuart, and thank you for that kind introduction.
It's an absolute pleasure. You are a man of inestimable ability, and I'm really, really pleased to have you here. You came to me through a series of extraordinary references from people who adore you and who revere you as being a man of immense integrity.
Wow.
And so I thought, I've got to have him on Deep Dialogues. This is absolutely crucial. And you are the second male speaker in a season of 12 male speakers of global soul stewards who are going to be imparting a tremendous amount of wisdom, particularly about this extraordinary leading edge experience that we have of our living and our dying. And you have had, of course, particular experience of near-death experience. I wonder, in terms of the light worker of love that you are, could you perhaps share with us what those experiences were about?
Yes, in brevity. The first one took quite a long time. I died while ice climbing, and the second time I died of a heart attack. The first time I was a 21-year-old, I was in Montana, which is in the Western United States. I was an exchange student. I went on spring break to go ice climbing and snow caving in British Columbia and Alberta. So with a new partner, a man I had come to know through the outing club, whose skills complemented my winter outdoor skills, we went snow caving for 7 days, at the end of which, into the wilderness. It's just extraordinary. And we came out and we went for a 1-day ice climb. Now, I'd been rock climbing in my life. I'd been a mountain climber for most of my life and backpacking all over the United States and the East as well. And every single season, I'd climbed lots of rocks, but I'd never climbed ice. And I didn't have all of the gear. And so I acquired the gear through borrowing and renting and finding, and I came up short one ice axe. And I had a hammer instead, a very small tool, and an axe, a very long tool. And having a hammer was not a good idea to climb with a hammer. You can climb with a hammer It's totally possible. I did 500-600 feet, but it delayed my climb on every swing. I had a shorter swing of the arm, 18 inches longer. And it also, I could never rest holding the hammer. The axe had a strap that I could put my hand through and hold my wrist and relax my arm, but the hammer did not. And so I had to grip it, which I used up all my muscle energy. I burned out my forearms very rapidly. By the time we reached the top of the climb, there were other teams on the ice that day, maybe 12 other people. By the time we reached the top, they had all descended. And the last team was on its way out as the sun was going down. And we already knew that we were in serious trouble because we were so slow. I was so slow. Tim, I should say this about Tim. He was a certified ice lead climber, certified climber. So he knew his job, and we had a very safe climb except for this problem. This problem, as the sun went down, cascaded into hypothermia and frostbite. And it was, I'm going to cut this part of the story short. It's, if you've ever seen any high adventure K2 Himalaya mountain kind of ice climbing kind of thing, read a book about it, it was like that. It was like that cold. The temperature dropped about 30 degrees. Hypothermia set in immediately, went through all of the stages, which are surprising when they're happening. There's a loss of control. I had a loss of muscular control. I was vibrating with pulsations of shivers, that my jaw was clattering, and that was only the beginning. We realized immediately when we were at the top with our legs dangling off the edge and our eyes above, there was a million zillion stars overhead of all these different colors. The moon hadn't risen, and there was some level of light so we could see. But with the drop of the temperature, we knew immediately this was it. We were going to die, and what we were going to do about it. So we decided that we were going to try to get off the mountain, because we knew if we stayed, we were going to die 100%. If we moved, we might not die. I don't know what the percentage was, but it was small. We went through this night of traversing and rappelling and getting stuck and making mistakes, because hypothermia steals your brain. It creates a confusion of fog, and rational choices aren't always the ones that you make. As it progressed through the night, we fought our way across the ice, 2 rappels. We got down to the last rappel sometime before dawn. I don't know. This particular rappel had a ledge, and this ledge was 150 feet up from the bottom, and it had iron pins and carabiners and straps, and we were hooked into the mountain for the first time all night, safe in that way. But by this point, my feet had gone through the fire. For cold is like fire. So if you've ever touched something red hot, that's what cold feels like as it goes deep inside. And so my feet had been like flaming boots of fire all night long. And as that fire progressed inside all of my body, my fingertips, my face, everything, all my muscles started slowing down, not really able to talk well. Lips, eyeballs were freezing. My feet had gone through this phase of fire, and now I couldn't feel them. And I stood on the ledge, and Tim was to my left, and we were pinned and carabinered and strapped in, and I had the rope. And my hands, I'm wearing. I decided one of the things I decided to do with my being on YouTube is I'm not going to, like, I wear gloves all the time. Anytime I wear gloves, anyway. So this is true. This is what I do, and never a day goes by in my life that I don't remember some aspect of what happened to me. It's a fingertip that's cold. It's a toe that I can't feel. It's a perception shift that has never ended since the moment I came back. I became a new person. I was born again. I was my psychology and my self-understanding. I was a completely new person. I was not the person I was the day before. I knew where I was from. I know where I'm from, and I know where I'm going. I know who I am. So, but at this point of the night, I didn't know any of that. I had the rope. I took off my gloves. My hands were hard to tie a knot. I tied the knot to my harness. I took the other end of the rope after I put my mittens on and tossed it out around this corner. There was a corner, and the rope went around the corner. And as I pulled the rope to free it from the ring that was way up the top there, it jammed like on the very first pull, just like that. And the harder I pulled, the tighter the jam. And we couldn't get the rope loose. There's nothing we could do to get it free. I kept pulling on the rope, and my cold kept getting worse. And there was this point at which I opened my coat because I got so hot, which is one of the things that happens with hypothermia. And I knew better. I'd been on the ski patrol since I was in high school, and I was working at this place in Bozeman, Bridger Bowl, and I didn't care. Oh, I didn't care what had happened to me. I was hot. I unzipped my coat. And which accelerated my death. But as this was happening, I had this peace fall inside of me. I realized Tim yelled at me. I unzipped my coat and he yelled at me, "Don't unzip your coat." I'm like, I'm hot. And as I was thinking this peace settled on me because I'd been driving myself all night. And I accepted where I was. I gave up. I thought to myself, it's a good day to die. There was this Dustin Hoffman movie that was playing in the United States maybe 10 years before that. And there's this scene on the prairie, and this old wise Native American gets out of his tent and he says, "Today is a good day to die." And that's what I was thinking to myself. Today is a good day to die. And I thought about my parents, and my sister had vanished ran away when I was 14. And hurt my parents deeply. And I thought about God. And I was raised Roman Catholic and Greek Orthodox simultaneously, Catholic high school, all that kind of stuff. I had had mystical experiences as a child. So I had a background of experience, but I didn't know what death was. And when I accepted it, a peace came to me. And then started to fall asleep. I'd fall asleep. I'd collapse to the rock. I'd stand back up, pull on the rope. I stood back up this last time, and there was this tunnel vision around me. It was like it was a spotlight on a stage in a dark house, and you're on the stage by yourself, and there's the spotlight. It's going out of you instead of you're not looking at it, and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. It's like it's the audience view, and suddenly darkness. And when this went, I thought to myself, I'm falling asleep, but I didn't. The previous times I'd fallen asleep, like a curtain drop to a blackened stage, loss of consciousness. But this time, and I was awake. And I was awake in a way that I didn't understand how I could be awake. And I didn't know where the mountain had gone, and I couldn't feel my body anymore. I knew that I was still me. The darkness opened in front of me, this void that was darker than the dark night. And way far in the distance, there was a distance to it. It's pitch dark, but I can't explain. Everything I say is a metaphor because there's no language. It's all ineffable. In the far distance, there was a pinpoint of light, and this light rushed toward me and filled my vision and flowed inside of me and took me with it, even though I resisted. It carried me up and unfolded itself into a darker darkness. And this darker darkness was even more illuminated. Oh, I should say this. On the journey up, I was superpositioned. I was enveloped inside of this angelic being, this intelligence, communicating to me this superposition. It is both the fullness of the divine, which I'd experienced in my childhood, and a reduction of the divine sort of for me, so that I wouldn't be exploded by the presence of the ineffable. But it was much more powerful than me. I was like a rag doll in a river. I had no agency, and I didn't want any agency. I was a body of light. I had a physical form, like I had a physical shape of Peter, but I was no physicality whatsoever. There was whatever this light thing was, it's not on the electromagnetic spectrum, but it was light is a good metaphor for it. And I had a sort of shape, and I could see out through this entity that who I knew from my childhood. And I could see through it into the dark void, kind of in the tunnel, and I could see myself from the outside. I was superpositioned. I was a non-localized observer of myself inside the angelic being, this energy that's just a phrase, angelic being, way that does not cover close to what this was. Mercy and comfort and welcome and joy and all this bliss flowing into me as it carried me up, abandoning my body and not even caring. Goodbye. Don't see ya. Don't need you anymore. And I could see myself from this. So I was superpositioned. So this non-localized form of me was also somehow connected to the divine. And so I get carried up and the angelic being unfolds itself or pops me out hard. I'm still trying to figure out parts of what happened to me. I'm still contemplating them. And then as I contemplate them, I contemplate them by thinking about them, but also by getting out of the way of them. And I've learned more over the years about what happened to me. So for me, my story gets a little bit longer to me as I grow older. Oh yeah, now, because when I came back, I only brought back this much. And from this point of view, it's a lot, but from that point of view, it's nothing. So which led me into this journey, this interior journey of practicing to eliminate myself, to return to my home, who I know that I am. But that's after I come back. So meanwhile, I'm in this void. People call it the void, but this void is a darkness that's illuminated. I'm in an illuminated darkness, and I can see in every direction at once. And I can see further. I can see. It would be like if I had the James Webb telescope for an eyeball, and I could see just moments before the origin of the universe as it pops into being, and not beyond that. There was that kind of distance, but also that limit. And beyond that limit, I knew that there was infinity. I could sense that it became dark, a dark that was impenetrable to me. But I could see, and there was nothing here but me. And I was content. I knew who I was. As soon as I was there, this is me. I'm this. I've always been this. Why did I think I was that? And to say I was unafraid is to say that I had no care, that I knew who I was, and I remembered who I was. And then this light appeared, only it was like a ripping open of the darkness. And it was like a waterfall flow of all of the starlight colors of the night and more, the whole electromagnetic spectrum, X-rays and infrared and ultraviolet and millions of more. And there were all these like fish scales, these iridescent fish scales of all of these colors, each one of them with the power of the sun. And yet I could see all of their individual colors, and they were simultaneously all white. They had this duality to them. They were this and that at the same time. And there was this flow to it. And it was the opening. I was ginormous. I was 10,000 times bigger than my human form. And this was 100,000 times bigger than me. I was just this, and it was this waterfall of light. And had these three dimensions to it. It was solid. I could see the surface of it. I could see the depth of it. I could see a depth of it. So it was translucent. And then it was transparent. I could see through it into the infinite deeper darkness. There was a doorway into the infinity. And as I'm talking right now, I didn't understand that till right now. That was always something I wasn't sure where it went. And so, and as I touched it, it was seductive. It was attractive. It was the most uniformly beautiful essence and I wanted it, and I reached for it, and I touched it with my being. And as I touched it, I opened, and it inflowed inside of me and infilled me and inflated me. It inflated me, and all of these parts of itself happened at the same time. There's this non-chronology to it. There's a timeless moment of eternity where forward time and past time and woven time and inside out time and upside down time and all these times I can't explain are all right there. And so all of this happened all at once for me. But I'm going to tell it the way that I can. I went into hell. I saw myself. I had my life review. And my life review, as I'm being infilled and inflated, I hear my name called. And my name isn't just the Peter. It's not Peter at all. I'm pointing over there as if I've got a body. It's not Peter at all. It's the origin of myself. It's the breath. It's the calling in the Christian tradition. It's the naming. I'm being named into being. Only I'm being named into being, eternally named into being. I have always been. I've always been as long as I've been spoken into being. And I'm being spoken into being, and I am also now. And even in the moment of my experiencing this, I'm still being spoken into being. And yet I could see the origin of myself. The origin of myself was next to this infinite number of photons. And these photons were one massive being. And in this one massive being of light, I am a photon of it. But I am outside it and connected to it. But I am less than it because I'm outside it. But I'm more than myself because I'm connected to it. And it shows me my own origin. And it shows me other lives I had lived. I'm now almost back into this unitive state. And I see all of these lives that I had lived. And there was, I don't know how many. I couldn't see, there were many lives, but I could see two, and I kind of focused in on two in particular. And they're all happening simultaneously for me. They're not, they're sort of laid out. And I've been describing it these days as a very long baguette with kebab spears in it. And the kebab spears represent the lives, and the baguette represents the soul that inhabits. And I am above the soul that inhabits, and I see the soul that inhabits this life of mine that is everlasting as the soul that inhabits. But I see that my incarnated lives are not me. I know me as part of the mass, the field of photons, and I see though these two lives, and I want to know. So I look down inside them, and I'm given permission. This is all being shown to me. I have communication with this entity, this being, but I'm by permission only. And it drops me into one of these lives, and in this life I am inhabiting this body. I'm inside this body. And the body is a male's body, and I'm seeing I'm like totally conscious of looking out his eyes, and I'm like, I'm in a body, and I can see a dusty dirt road. I've got sandals on my feet. I'm wearing a like a blanket, a robe kind of thing, and there are trees, tropical trees, and there are a house, but I'm away from the houses. I'm on a road with a bunch of people walking on it. There's people walking both ways. It's like a highway or something for foot traffic, and I'm with people, and I can see them, and then I'm taken out, and I'm put into this other being, and this other being. For the longest time, I thought it was a lizard or some kind of insect or something. I'm inside of this other being, and maybe I'm on Earth. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't on Earth and I was in some other humanoid or form on another planet, but everything was completely unrecognizable. I didn't know what anything was, but I was in a world and there were things there, but I can't explain it. I was pulled out. So all of this is happening, and simultaneous to this, I have my life review. So I see myself for who I am, but I also see my life, for my recent life, for what it was. And what I went through was all of the pain that I gave away in my life was karma that accrued to me. And I experienced all of the pain that I gave away in my life. from inside each individual person I gave it to every single time. So I'm inside of them, experiencing the pain that I'm also outside of them, giving it to them. I'm experiencing the pain I'm giving them. And the magnification factor of what I caused to them was visible to me because of as the outside person handing over the pain, I experienced all of my reasoning and emotions and ideas, causations for wanting to give them to them. And on the inside of my sister, my brother, my friend, my mother, I felt this huge rush of adrenaline and emotions, which was disproportionate in its karma to what I was thinking I was causing. And in my subsequent thinking, how is it possible to be in these two? Because people talk about the Akashic records, they talk about the book of heaven, that your book. So my book of heaven, my video of heaven, my sister's video of heaven, because the divine is in her. The reason why I am known is because I am made of the divine. There's no thing that is not. And so the recording isn't some angel up there with a fountain pen. It is the divine itself who experienced the pain that I created. And I, simultaneous to this, I am flushed with shame because there is inside of me and around me, and there's this voice. And this voice surrounds me, and it is this entire cosmos I'm inside of, but it's also right up close next to me, but it's also right inside of me, and I can't see the voice. I can only hear the voice. And it's saying all of this to me. Everything I've said it's saying it so that I experience it. And I have shame from the pain that I caused, because in comparison to myself, I see the infinity. The voice says its own light. And in saying its own light to me, I see my smallness. I see my corporeal, muddly, temporary nature of my selfish actions in comparison to purity of love. And I judge myself. And in this judgment of myself, I see all of humanity. And I see all of the karma of humanity, all the sins. And I don't see any differentiation between them. There's no, your sin's bad. Your sin's bad. Your sin's worse than my sin. I'm going to condemn you. I see only equality. And the equality isn't between this way. The equality, well, it is this way. My equality is this way with humanity, but the comparison is to the purity. This is where the purity is. So this is all the same, which showed me the structure of the brokenness of the universe as a necessity for its own existence. It can't be this other purity, or it would not exist. And so I experienced that there was this radical equality of humanity, and that it wasn't my fault that I caused pain, even though paradoxically I chose to cause the pain and I created the pain, and it was my fault that I created the pain, but it wasn't my fault. I didn't write the code. I am coded, and all the universe is coded too. And so as this all happened, I took all the pain that I gave away in my life, but I also took all the love people had given me. And this love was still alive in me, and it became visible to me as my soul ear caught the sound of the voice saying to me, I love you. I know you. There was no part of me that was unknown to it, from my human self right up to my original self. And there's no part of me that is unknown, and that I have loved you and known you in every action, and welcome, end healing, end the desire for healing, end suffering, bring healing, bring welcome, bring joy, peace, love, joy, understanding, knowledge, cosmic knowledge, like knowledge beyond my capacity to say, bliss and paradise and awe and understanding and energy, this divine energy. And I inflate and infill, and I get bigger and bigger and bigger and filled with the divine presence. And as it fills inside of me, all these things, all these words, this joy and this peace and paradise, we have these separate concepts for in the world, love and light. And there are all these little definitions of words that we use to separate these things. But in the presence of the divine, it's all one beauty. There is no separation to it. And I became this one beauty. And I expanded to this level where I felt like this highest level of myself would enfold back into the infinity. And that would be it for any sort of, that was my desire. I was in adoration, and I wanted this. I wanted myself to be this thing, but there was this level of pain. There was this one spot at which I knew that if I had one more drop, one more molecule, I would be annihilated. And I maybe chose self and collapsed. And I collapsed back, and now I can see my human's world again. I know myself, but I see my human world, and I see my mom and my dad, and I say to the voice, what about them? I'm going to die. They're going to really lose their son this time. My mom and my dad were grieving for the disappearance of my sister, which is an unending death. There's no end to that, emotionally and psychologically. So as I ask this question, and I don't want to run out of time. We're good on time, Stuart? I'm like giving this monologue, brother.
I'm letting you flow because you're taking us through a metaphysical experience as you describe this. At least, I mean, I hope everybody's there. A number of people in the chat box are saying beautifully articulated. So you're as you take us through, as it were, each pulsation of each moment, we are able to discern through our own experience as we glide with you, pinnacle points of truth that come through to do with an understanding of the all that is and shall be forevermore, as well as your humanity, and then being taken, I'm jumping forward hugely here through the story, but of going into the real substance of how you experience the karma, so that you were able to actually examine where the pain was, but how immediately there was release. So, for me, you're showing us where divine mercy lies and how the grace speaks through. And so the story is monumental, but I want you to feel sufficient with the telling of it, because it is a metaphysical experience that you're sharing with us. And so is there more before I ask questions?
There is more, not much more, but there is more. And so as I ask about my parents, I'm like a big hand. This is like a cartoon. A big hand sweeps me across.
Yeah.
But the hand, of course, I'm in the belly of the divine. This is like Jonah and the whale. Jonah and the whale. Jonah's in the belly of the divine. The whale is the divine. He's in the darkness. And it's carrying him where he doesn't want to go. And so this is kind of the same situation. Only I wasn't running away. I'm like super attracted. And so I say, what about my parents and their suffering? And as I say this hand, I'm swept across heaven. And heaven is there's like not a separation here. It's not like God and heaven. God is heaven. It is all one thing. And so I'm swept across to this place. It's like the Higgs boson field where energy becomes matter. And it's like this, tingly, tingly, tingly. And I'm shoved outside of it. A portion of me is shoved outside of this field. And I can feel the field, and most of me still back in heaven with the divine still utterly present. And I'm shown the universe, Like I'm sticking my head into the moment of creation of the time of what's going on in my universe right now. And
Mhm.
I'm like, and I can see all of the galaxies, and I see the spaces between them. I see huge spaces between them. I see all of these galaxies, and I'm being shown. I'm not like looking around. I'm like going "Rrr," this kind of thing. And so my vision goes, "Rrr," and I look. I look, and my vision was focused. I wasn't like controlling my focal length either. It's like, remember, I don't even have a body. So I'm talking like eyeballs and hands and stuff, but there is none of that. And so my vision is focused back to the origin of the time of the beginning of our universe. And so
Mhm.
I see the there's and beyond the singularity of the beginning of our universe, the compression of all matter and energy to the singular spot, there is an infinity of darkness that I cannot see into. It's the same infinity of darkness that there's like a bubble I'm inside of,
Mhm.
and this bubble is the divine, and then this po- pops open. Only this pop open is infused in all of its energy and molecules with the divine light that I can see being made as it enters into it, as it spreads to create the universe I'm in at the moment I'm in it. So the moment of creation is simultaneous to the time that I'm looking at. So I'm seeing the beginning and the present, and they're the same thing. And as I'm watching this beginning, it's unfolding and unfolding. It's like petals of the lotus flower, and
Mhm.
unfolding, and more and more and more. And each one of these is another universe. It's
Mhm.
another universe and another universe and another universe, and they keep being birthed. And I still can't see the origin of who's giving the birth. I know who's giving the birth. I can't see the birth giver, but it's pouring out in our universe, multiverses. In our universe, it's suffused with the light. It's suffused with the light inside of everything, but it's not like galactic light. You look up at the sky at night and you see a galaxy or a star. It's not like that. It's like inside. It's the light inside the light. And as I see the warp and the weave of the entire universe made out of the divine substance, like Indra's net, like inside of everything, my vision is swept back to our galaxy, kind of like focused in on our galaxy, down the little arm that sticks out, and there's our solar system, and there's our planet. And I zoom in on the planet, and the planet's like a hologram. It's like a hologram because I can see through it. I can see every single human being on earth at the same time. I'm not like looking at one and looking at the other. I can see them all. I see them all. I see inside all of them. And
Mhm.
inside all of them, all of the ones who are alive, was this little gold flake of light, a flake of golden dust. And it is brilliant to me. It is, and there are 7 billion of these illuminations, but they're layered over inside a human. And between all the human beings, there's this big sludge. And this big sludge is a fog, a sludgy fog that prevents people from seeing that light. I
Mhm.
see it clearly, and
Mhm.
then I see there's wars. I see people being murdered. I see rapes. I see violence. I see lovemaking. I see babies being born. I see all of this all at once. Everybody's half the planet's sleeping, half the planet's awake, and I zoom in. I want to see, and so I zoom. I guess I express a desire to zoom in, and I see a ship in the middle of the Atlantic, and I zoom down, I like fly down to the ship, and there's a person, and I see this person up close, and this illumination in him, and he's doing his job on this freighter, and there's all these other people, and I'm pulled right out again, and then I'm shown my parents' faces. No, no, no. Then I'm told love.
Mhm.
This seeing of this light inside of everything there is expressed with this infinite love. This unfolding of all of these multiverses are suffused with love. Love is what they are, and it is one thing. And all of the love and all of the universe, the voice aims it at me and says to me, "You are my beloved. I love you in the way that you feel it now, and I cannot tell you the infinite power of this
Mm.
love that is all there is, infused inside of me, and was, is, and will always be well-being. I am well-being for eternity because I am the divine itself, and everyone is the same as me. And all was, is, and will be well, not in a physical form, but because of the core of my very being, that which I am. And I can see that inside of every star and planet and person, good or bad, moral or immoral, venal, vicious or not. Everyone has this inside them. And then I see my parents' faces, and I see parallel lives. I see their lives with me and their lives without me. And I see all of their suffering that they had accumulated in their lives. And with me, there's less suffering. And without me, there's only shattering. And I see the end of their lives. And the end of their lives land in the same place. And this place is this space of utter love. And so all will be well, the voice says to me. Make your choice. And I say, if I go back, because I know timelessness, I know myself. If I go back, time seems so temporary from over there. It's such a no thing. If I go back, can I come back here? And the voice says, yes, you come back here. But it's time for you to come home. But yes, you come back here. I say, I choose to live my life. It says, you won't live your life, and sends me out. And as I go, I am carried by the same angelic form, and I'm getting denser and denser and denser and denser. And as I leave heaven, there are a million portals. They're all doorways that lead back to my body. But there are a million of them, and they're all different lives. And in the center of all of these is a single beam of white light that's gigantic in comparison to the size of the doors. And I know that it leads back into the presence of the divine. I look back to see it, but I can't see its origin. I can only see like the super highway of white beam of light. And as it hits these portals, its intenseness is next to the closest doors. And then it fades as it goes out to the outer edges. And the voice says to me, soundless, wordless, choose. And I choose myself instead of it. I could choose the light, but instead I want the light. I want this origin. I was in the state of union, but I thought to myself, if I'm going back, I need to be somehow human. I have to have flaws. I have to be a regular guy. I've got to have creativity. I wanted I wanted fun, but I wanted the light. And in that instant, I was in this door, and it was close to the light. It wasn't far from the light, but it wasn't in the light. And as I go in this door, I travel this tunnel, and I'm going down this tunnel, and there's all these other doors inside the tunnel, and all these other doors lead to all the other tunnels and all the other doors. And I travel down this tunnel, and I get out, pop out, and the angelic form is with me. And by now I'm crushed into a dense form, and it opens me, I can see my body hanging on the cliff, and it opens, like slices me open and forces me in and screws me in like an ice screw. And I'm inside my body, and I don't know what I am anymore.
Peter, where was the entry point?
Right here.
So it's right in the heart.
Right in the heart.
Yeah.
And as I get stuffed inside, I look back, and it looks like an eye. So it looks like an eye slit, like if you're going to draw an eye, and it looks like an eye slit. And I can see the angelic being, and I can see back toward heaven, but not the presence of where I had been. And then it's sealed. Whoosh. And as it's sealed, I was shocked into pain. Now my brain starts to whir on the line again, and everything's on fire, and everything hurts, and I don't know who I am. I just what had just happened? What am I doing here? It wasn't so much I didn't know who I was in terms of God anymore. I didn't know who I was in terms of a human. I was like, what is this thing? This isn't me. What am I doing here? And suffering comes pouring back into me. Oh, everything hurts, and my brain wears on, and my hearing comes on, and I'm hearing And I'm hearing screaming and yelling and crying, and then my brain begins to interpret, and I open my eyes, and it's Tim, and he's yelling at me, "You're dead. Don't die. Don't." No, he's yelling at me as my ears come on. He's like, "Don't die, don't die, don't die." This is what I hear. "Don't die, don't die, don't die." And I open my eyes, and he's like, "Yeah, you're not dead." And I'm like, "What is this? Where am I? What's going on?" And he pulls me up, and, "You were dead. I thought you were dead." And he's crying, and he's like Mr. Super level-headed. Okay, this is like the end of the when finally the dam breaks. But he was Mr. Super Dam, and me too, because that's what you do in the wilderness. You don't panic, you survive. And so I brain came back on. I realized who I was and where I was, but I was not the same person.
Mm.
And I'll end by saying that by what I've deduced, and this is a deduction, there was, by some miracle, in the times that I was falling asleep, I landed in one spot on the ledge, and when I died, I kind of fell off the ledge, and maybe that's what unjammed the rope, or maybe it was an angelic tug of the line. I don't really know. But we descended and we self-treated for hypothermia.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop. I could keep going.
Wow. I mean, it's just, it's extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. And I hope everybody else is. I'm with you every single step of the way. I don't even know, I'm in an altered state of consciousness, so I don't really know what people are writing. Can I read? Maybe I can. So I have questions. So many questions, but the key principles was your realization on a really deep sensate level of the superposition for all things that you were seeing in relation to the infinite intelligence, and that one of the portals was through the being of light
That I did not choose.
that you did not choose. Exactly. Did the being of light have, you've already given it an identity, but did it have a name?
No. Ineffable. No gender, no religion, no
Indeed.
language, nothing to hang anything onto it, but the direct experience of the presence itself.
Direct experience of it, yeah. Because I have many parallels with what you're expressing, although I have not actually had the severity of the physical experience that you talk about, but on mystical levels. So we see an angelic guardian.
I did.
That's the sense that I'm making of it. You describe the interplay of all of the experiences with great articulation. So you're using many concepts within words, but actually it feels to me that what you're really trying to convey to us is this extraordinary escalation, avalanche of extraordinary feelings.
I'm trying to utilize language as a vehicle
Yeah,
to transport Shaktipat,
yeah, yeah,
because ultimately it's inexpressible.
yeah, yeah. But you're doing pretty well.
That's
Your choice of language.
this was my job.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you've made sense of it. And what was extraordinary with in that moment of reverie was when you suddenly said, "I've never thought this before," and it took you into another aspect of the consciousness of the whole. Okay, what do I want to ask you? There are so many things. Shaktipat, could you just, I've personally I've experienced it. I was given it by Sai Baba. It was one of his first gifts to me, and my body collapsed, and I was nothing for 2 weeks and couldn't move and was looked after, and then gradually put everything back into, back together again, and I was taken back to see him, and he said, "Good, you look much better." And I said, "But what did you do to me?" And he said, "I know I'm God, you had forgotten. So
Yeah.
I've reminded you of who you are." So the cosmological nature of the mystical experience that you've taken us through, it feels very real to me. He then did this with his hand, and in his hand was a ring, which is the ring that I wear on this finger of the Om, which he said it will disappear, but it hasn't, and that was many, many years ago. However, when you came back into a rehabilitated flesh, and you were able to somehow piece together all of the consciousness arousal that you were given, were there specific words, concepts, experiences that you were able to define were the crucial elements that you would then want to go on to share with all of us?
I wouldn't put it that way. I understand what you mean. When I came back, I totaled Tim's car the next night on the way home, and it's a long story about what happened. And there was jail time, and all sorts of things happened.
Right.
And the day after was the first day that I was by myself, and I was hitchhiking back to Montana. We had enough money between us that he could take a bus with our skis and poles. And that sunrise morning, as I stood out on the highway and by myself, this roar was inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
And this roar was inside of me, and it was inarticulatable, unspeakable, inarticulatable and unspeakable. And it was overpowering everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it told me to speak it. It told me that to speak it. And then it gave me no words.
Mm-hmm.
And what it gave me was longing, loss, abandonment. I felt like I was exiled. And so I went in pursuit of that which I could see but could not say. And I did it twofold. I went into language. I was an English major after all, and then I went to divinity school. And I studied mysticism, as you said. And the reason why I studied it is because I figured I had to choose a religion. I'd read through the Upanishads and the Vedas, and I did this exploration for 2 or 3 years before I went to div school. But I needed to ground myself in my own tradition, because I was going to have to hide out. And how could I be this alien being? I'm an alien being among people who do not see the world as I do. Who from every moment of my life, I'm like looking and masking myself until the past few years. And I went into language in order to become, to create a structure to express the best I could, the state of the unitive state of being, beauty and love. And in the process, I discovered prayer techniques, Kriya Yoga from Patanjali and Yogananda, and Jesus. His prayer techniques is talking about singleness of I, the way of the pilgrim, the chanting, the japa, the way of the pilgrim, the chanting technique, and I'd already been practicing a form of Theravada Buddhism that was combined with Western Catholic mysticism called centering prayer. At the time, it was contemplative meditation. And so all of that, to answer to your question, the language is a secondary thing for me. What I've really been after my whole life is to be the presence itself inside myself, to heal myself, and then to see if I could give that away. Because when I was a younger man, a year before this happened, I had an out of body heaven experience where I was told what to do. And I've been trying to do that ever since. I'm trying to give it away. How do you give away that which can't be said? And so that's love.
Well, indeed, yes, because you speak of the suffering that you perceived, the suffering within your parents, the suffering on planet Earth. But at the same time, the journey that you took us on was full of wonder and full of awe in the experience of the almighty aspect of what we all are derived from and what we all experience if we wish here, and then what we return to. And so there were equal measures. And I'd just like to take up this point, or I know exactly what you're meaning by the way that words are insufficient. But at the same time, words create vibrational flow, and it's the vibration it feels that you were wanting to take us to, and that's why I wanted you to continue rather than to crassly interrupt you in the flow of the mystical experience, because we were all with you. So what you've just given us is a prayer.
Yes,
By
that is
telling the
exactly
story,
so.
you have given us this prayer. And I'm reminded of grace, and I'm reminded of mercy, and I'm reminded of humility. And there were several things that have happened to me over this weekend that have crashed into my consciousness because of the sensitivity of my own significant relationship with the divine. What crashed into my consciousness was the unconscionable behavior of human beings that I'm serving at this time. And so your story healed me because it brought me back into the realization of who I am and not what I am, getting bogged down in trying to provide sense to the iniquities that were being offered. I had to engage in a lower vibrational level to then spring back into a higher vibrational level. So from my heart to yours, I thank you for that. And this recording, I know, in its anthem to the one and only love, will be listened to time and time and time again. So I thank you for that. Unfortunately, we're gradually coming to a moment of close. And I was about to say to anybody listening that everybody's probably in the most extraordinary altered state of consciousness, if they had any questions for dear Peter. One of the questions that we do, one of the questions that we do need to ask you, of course, is what is the best way, not how, but what is the best way of connecting with Peter?
PeterPanagore.love. There it is.
There it is. Ryan is already ready. And of course, you have your own YouTube channel as well, which is called
Not church. It's my name, Peter Panagore, but the branding is not church. And I'm currently working through the Gospel of Thomas, utilizing Upanishads and the Vedas and the Kabbalah, and making cross references of similarities.
Oh, amazing, amazing, amazing. For very, very personal reasons, because the Gospel of Thomas has been rushing through my consciousness
It's the
over the
best.
last 2 weeks. And so I was thinking, I must go back and read. I must go back and read. Because I've just spent 3 weeks in Egypt, which is a land that I go to a tremendous amount and have as a pilgrim for 50 years. But I was running a retreat, and then for a week diving into further research about the resurrection of Osiris. That's a separate conversation.
Yeah, I'd like to hear about that.
Feeling the parallels with the life of Yeshua, and what, of course, is not being presented by the dogma of the Catholic Church or of religion per se. Not that that's a statement of judgment, it's just purely an observation.
Right, it's just true.
Exactly. So there is a conversation that I would love to have with you at some other time. Well, we're running to the close, and I know it's just the beginning, but I want to thank you really intensely for what you've just offered us. It has been absolutely mind-blowing. And so, Peter, you're a very, very dear person. What's next for Peter? What is the next project, apart from what you've just revealed to us about the parallels between Thomas and the Upanishads?
My soul, Heaven is Beautiful, it has an option for a movie I've been working on for 2 years. And what I'm hoping is next is that this chapter that I'm waiting to come back from the proofreader, I actually go to the proofreader and then come back to me and hand it into the producers, that they will say, put it into PDF onto the next chapter. It's been a 3-year process of learning to write in a new voice for them. And it's been a good process for me. It's been a hard process, but I'm very strongly interested in critique, because critique improves me. And so a movie, and then these 5 chapters will be turned into my next book.
Wow. Wow. We look forward to reading that and seeing the movie. Any time frame?
No, they tell me don't. If anybody asks you, say, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, well, I would love to give a time frame. Soon, please.
Soon. Well, me too, because I've been working for these guys, this man and this woman, and she's a near-death experiencer. She
Right.
heard me on another podcast, and she called me up and like, so. Anyways, so they told me not to say any timeline.
No, sure. Listen, everybody, we've been in the presence of this extraordinary man, Peter Panagore, and his amazing retelling of an experience that, if it's deep within your cellular union, is going to be playing through you in different levels of your consciousness. I will look forward to seeing what you reveal after sleeping the night. So to you all, bless you for being here. Namaste, namaste. Of course, we will be meeting again at the same time next week with another extraordinary NDE individual who's a very, very cherished person. So please do tune in. And to Mr. Peter Panagore, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Stuart. I was so glad to be here.
Bless you.
Thank you, everybody.
So stay where you are, please, Peter. And thank you, Ryan, if we close down.